Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Sports Corner. I'm Cole Young, and in terms of football, this was one of the most important weeks of the year. Starting with college football, the national championship was on Monday night, and the University of Michigan Wolverines are national champions for the first time since 1997. After 9 seasons coaching his alma mater and in his 3rd consecutive playoff appearance, head coach Jim Harbaugh finally delivered the title so many expected when he took over a struggling powerhouse program back in 2015. Michigan entered this game as the favorites, but University of Washington was known for its high-powered passing game that could put up big points. Michigan running back Donovan Edwards scored 2 rushing touchdowns in rapid succession as Michigan ran for 229 yards in the first quarter alone. Michael Penix Jr. threw his only touchdown of the game with 42 seconds remaining in the first half, which brought the Huskies within 7 of Michigan. The score sat at 17-10 at halftime, but Michigan literally and figuratively ran away with the game in the second half. Blake Horn would rush for 2 second-half touchdowns for Michigan, and with Washington's Penix throwing 2 second-half interceptions, the Wolverines became the college football national champions, winning 34-13. Michigan completed their season with a perfect 15-0 record. The world now waits patiently to see where Jim Harbaugh will be coaching next season, whether that's back at Michigan in the pros or some other unknown third option. College football is officially over, and the NFL is reaching its conclusion. Last week was the final week of the NFL regular season, and some major implications were in play. Several teams were fighting to secure their spot in the playoffs, while some teams already had a spot in the postseason but were looking to improve their seeding. Starting in the AFC on Saturday, the Indianapolis Colts and Houston Texans were squaring off for the AFC South division title as well as a spot in the playoffs. Both of these teams came as a huge surprise to almost everyone, as most believed they both would be towards the bottom of the league this season. Rookie sensation quarterback C.J. Stroud had a record-breaking season as he finished with 4,108 passing yards, the 3rd most for any rookie in NFL history, as well as 23 touchdowns with just 5 interceptions. He started the game off with a bang as Stroud launched a 75-yard touchdown pass to Nico Collins on the Texans' first play from scrimmage. The Colts didn't roll over quietly, though, as they still had a chance to win the game. But a dropped pass by the Colts on 4th and 1 with 1 minute remaining in the 4th quarter would seal the victory for Houston. The Jacksonville Jaguars also found themselves in a win-and-in situation, facing off with the division rival Titans. The Titans basically dominated the Jaguars all day, but Jacksonville made it close at the end and ended up losing, and Jacksonville's loss meant that the Steelers and Bills had clinched the final 2 playoff spots. However, the Bills still wanted to get a win over the Dolphins on Sunday night to secure the AFC East division title as well as the number 2 seed. In a back-and-forth game that was an all-time classic, the Bills came out on top of the Dolphins and did indeed clinch the division and the number 2 team in the AFC playoffs. The AFC playoffs are officially set, with the Ravens at number 1, number 2 being the Bills, the Chiefs taking the 3rd spot, the Texans sneaking in at number 4, the Browns at 5, and finally, the Dolphins and Steelers coming in at 6 and 7, respectively. As the clear number 1 team, the Baltimore Ravens will have a first-round bye, and their divisional round opponent will be determined in the wildcard round this weekend. With that said, here's the AFC wildcard schedule for this weekend. On Saturday, the playoffs kick off with the matchup of 2 of the most improbable playoff teams, the Browns and the Texans. The Browns have been on fire behind veteran quarterback Joe Flacco, as well as the most dominant defense in recent history. As I said before, the Texans have an incredibly high-powered offense with quarterback C.J. Stroud and his offensive weapons in Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, and more. Even though they'll be on the road, the Browns are just slightly favored in this game. This will absolutely be a fun game to watch, but I think the Browns will hold off the Texans with their unstoppable defense. This game kicks off at 1:30 p.m. on NBC this Saturday. Following that game, we'll get an electric rematch of the Dolphins and Chiefs in a Tyreek Hill revenge game. The Chiefs narrowly outlasted the Dolphins earlier this season, but in the playoffs, anything can happen. The Chiefs have not been, well, the Chiefs we all know this season, as they have struggled enormously on offense. Patrick Mahomes has still played like himself, but his offensive weapons are almost non-existent. Travis Kelce has shown his age this season, but he still is always a massive factor in the offense, especially in the red zone. He'll be a key factor to watch in this game. The Chiefs have mainly been carried by their defense this season, but they will be put to the test against the fast and skilled Dolphins. The Dolphins' speed on offense has been their bread and butter all season, with teams struggling to contain Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and more. Their explosive offense has been full of big plays and high scoring, but injuries and opponents' defensive adjustments have slowed them down as of late. The determining factors in this game will be the Chiefs' ability to score on offense, as well as the possible -5-degree weather in Kansas City. The Dolphins are 0-10 in their last 10 games when the temperature dipped below 40 degrees, and this game should be in the negatives. I do think the Dolphins will overcome and come out on top of this game, however. This game will be streaming exclusively on Peacock this Saturday at 5 p.m. Lastly, in the AFC, the last two teams to make the playoffs, the Bills and Steelers, will kick off the Sunday slate at 10 a.m. on CBS. The Bills have turned the season around entirely and have been on a roll lately, but they still aren't playing to their full potential. Josh Allen has made some questionable throws in most games this season, and star wide receiver Stephon Diggs has been virtually non-existent for the past few months. With that said, Buffalo continues to find ways to win. Their opponent for the wild card, Pittsburgh Steelers, have had a tumultuous season to say the least, but with head coach Mike Tomlin, have yet again made the playoffs. Their offense is decent when it's at its best, but their defense has been able to hold teams to minimal points and will their team to a win. This game will really come down to the Bills' ability to put points up on the board against this Steelers defense, but I think Buffalo will earn a win at home in another cold climate game. Over in the NFC, not many of the games this past weekend had huge implications. The Buccaneers already had a seat in the playoffs, but needed a win over the Panthers to win the NFC South and earn a better spot in the matchup. Even though it was just 9-0, they were able to secure a win, although it wasn't pretty. There was one spot left that was up for grabs, and the Packers, Seahawks, and Saints all were hoping they would be the one to earn their last second spot. The Packers continued their historic dominance over the Bears, earning a win which secured their spot in the playoffs. The Packers joined the number 1 49ers, number 2 Cowboys, the 3rd seed Lions, number 4 Buccaneers, 5 seed Eagles, and the Rams at the 6th spot. Just like the Ravens, the 49ers have a first-round bye, meaning the Packers will kick off the NFC wildcard this weekend with a matchup against their former head coach Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys. The Packers have really surprised a lot of people this year, myself included, and they do have a talented offense with quarterback Jordan Love. His young receivers like Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and more have proven valuable targets, and their defense has been relatively solid this season. However, the Cowboys have an absolutely loaded defense and an offense that has the ability to score 40-plus points week in and week out. Dak Prescott led the NFL with 36 passing touchdowns this season, and I'm certain that he will throw for at least 2 this weekend. The Cowboys are notorious for choking in the playoffs, but I'm fairly confident it won't happen this week. This game between the Packers and the Cowboys kicks off at 1:30 p.m. this Sunday on Fox. Following that is the revenge game everyone's been waiting for. In 2021, the Rams and Lions had a quarterback swap trade. Matthew Stafford went to the LA Rams, and Jared Goff headed to the Detroit Lions. Stafford went on to lead the Rams to a Super Bowl victory that season, and Goff has been part of a Lions team that's turned an entire franchise around and turned them into a Super Bowl caliber team. Now, these two teams will face off in Detroit in the wildcard playoffs. Both of these teams have incredible offenses, but middle-of-the-road defenses, so I think this will be a back-and-forth, high-scoring affair. The Lions' offense will flow through their weapons like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, while the Rams will rely heavily on Kyren Williams and the record-breaking rookie Puka Nacua. I expect the Lions to pick up a win at home, and this game kicks off at 5 p.m. on Sunday. The final game of the Super Wildcard weekend is an interesting one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles on Monday night at 5:15 p.m. After a 10-1 start, the Eagles have lost 5 of their last 6 games and look to be struggling immensely. Their defense has allowed boatloads of points, while their offense has hit a massive roadblock that they can't seem to overcome. This matchup will definitely be an opportunity to right the ship, and with the top-ranked offensive line and weapons like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith at receiver, it's time for Jalen Hurts to get back to his MVP form. The Bucs have been another surprising team this season, as everyone expected this to be a rebuilding year for them. Baker Mayfield has led this offense to the playoffs, and receiver Mike Evans had his 10th straight 1,000-yard season. Their defense has some question marks, but if Mayfield and the offense are clicking, this team can be dangerous. I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that the Bucs will come out of Philly with a win on Monday night. I'm not super confident in this one, but willing to take the risk. In August, I made my playoff predictions, and I predicted that the Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Jaguars, Dolphins, Jets, Ravens, Vikings, Eagles, 49ers, Panthers, Giants, Seahawks, and Lions would be the 14 teams in the playoffs. In my defense, if Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Daniel Jones didn't sustain season-ending injuries, we would have a very different conversation right now. But the Panthers, well, I have no excuse for picking them. Anyway, I got 7 out of 14 teams right. Not great, not terrible. But for my regular season picks, I went 4-0 last week, bringing me to 37-19 on the season, which is about 66% win rate. Not too shabby. My lifetime record with my picks is 76, 31-1, which is a little over 70%. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Sports Corner. Enjoy this beautiful Super Wildcard weekend. I know I will. Come right back next Friday for all the news, updates, highlights, and more surrounding the NFL playoffs and more major stories from around the sports world. I'm Cole Young. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time.